I am not a financial advisor, and I never give financial advice on this channel. 100% of this content is for entertainment purposes only. Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. It's Lane here with MetaShackle, and I am finally home and ready to rock. So I just wanted to go over the XRP charts really quick and kind of show you what I've been thinking since I've gotten home and had a chance to look at the charts again, pretty much the first time in about 3 weeks. So let's get into it. Now the first thing I want you to take a look at here on the XRP weekly chart, this is going back to 2017 when we saw this breakout around the month of March, which came up and consolidated for a little while before breaking out heavily to the upside. But what I want you to pay attention to is this right here, these Bollinger Bands around the current price action. This is 2017, and this is the current charts. Do you see anything in common? The price appreciation that I believe we're about to see will make even the naysayers likely flip sides. Now, taking a look at the total XRP chart, you can see that we have this expanding, broadening wedge pattern. We are also forming a trend line right here off of these 2 points, which is most likely about to come into play. You can also see that the Bollinger Bands are coming down and they're actually starting to tighten on the daily as well, but not near as significant as what we just saw on the weekly charts. I'm going to go ahead and remove the Bollinger Bands here so that we can see the chart more clearly. This is the bottom that we just set. And if you focus in on this part right here in that bottom, you can start to see that we are forming an inverse head and shoulders pattern, which you can see right here. Now, zooming into the 4-hour chart, you can see that there are a couple areas of importance that I think are going to play in to things coming soon. We have a fair value gap right here at the top of this inverse head and shoulders pattern, which has acted as resistance here, and it's acted as resistance here, and it's now looking like we're about to make a run for this, to which we either could be rejected or we could break through this. But breaking through this fair value gap is going to be key to getting up here to the equilibrium zone. If we get rejected here, it's likely we will not see any higher levels than that. But I do think that we are going to break through this and at least come up to this upper trend line area right here, or the equilibrium line right here, before seeing the flash crash, assuming that my thesis is correct. We also have a fair value gap that formed right here. This is really good because this will act as support moving forward. If we can get through this, this will flip over and also act as support, which would get us to this upper trend line or this equilibrium zone. But one thing that I often see in trading is even though we're forming this inverse head and shoulders right here, a lot of times these will come up to say this area here, then get rejected, flashing downwards, then moving up, forming a larger fractal of itself. So essentially this inverse head and shoulders here would actually be creating a larger fractal, which would be an inverse head and shoulders that I've marked out in this area. So there is a good chance if we can break through this fair value gap, moving up to this waterfall point right here, that we could see that rejection somewhere in this range, moving into the flash crash, which does not have to be as big as I've envisioned. I've theorized that it will follow this yellow path here, moving to equilibrium, down to the bottom of the pattern, sweeping this previous low, but it does not necessarily have to do that. That's just what I believe will happen. There's also a chance that it could form this larger fractal of this inverse head and shoulders pattern, being rejected in this area, coming down, being held up by this fair value gap right here, somewhere in this box, perhaps even filling it completely, instead of taking out this low, bouncing up this way to finish out the head and shoulders pattern before seeing the breakout of this upper trend line and off to price discovery. So there are a few probable paths here that I can see. The one that I originally envisioned here, moving into the month of May, where we will see the beginning of the breakout from the XRP breakout chart, but we could also see a fractal here of a larger inverse head and shoulders pattern, not taking out the previous low, bouncing off of this fair value gap here outside of this trend line, then upwards. So there are a couple paths this could go. And of course, if it gets rejected here, we could see the flash crash moving down towards this fair value gap, which would also sweep this previous low. Now, the false breakout doesn't have to be as big as I've originally envisioned it. Now, I originally envisioned it challenging the all-time high previous to the flash crash, but that's clearly not going to happen. So I believe that if it does move up, this equilibrium line would be the most likely point. Now, on the first chart, I set this somewhere around the 23rd, as the time was never guaranteed. It was basically just to give you an example of what we could potentially see to get the point across. So I've since moved it back here to about that 28th, 29th area, possibly moving into the month of May. But I just want to say that time is running out here with my flash crash thesis. If we don't see that flash crash moving upwards somewhere in this range by the 7th of May, then it's likely that the flash crash thesis would be off the table entirely, and we would be moving into what the XRP breakout chart is showing us, that the breakout will begin in the month of May, moving into June, July, and possibly even August. So that's something that you would want to watch out for. The original path moving up to equilibrium, coming down, taking out the previous low during the flash crash, then the breakout in the month of May. It could come up here falling short, getting rejected right here, somewhere between this waterfall point and this trend line, being rejected and held by this fair value gap before bouncing up, which would form a larger fractal of the head and shoulders pattern. We could also see a situation where we get rejected off of this fair value gap and the ensuing flash crash occurs right here. This might not seem like much of a false breakout leg, but if you look at it here, even if it gets rejected at this fair value gap right here, that's almost a 40% gain that we have seen since setting the low. That's pretty big, even though it's not as substantial at this point as I originally envisioned, thinking that it would come up to here. This is something we will have to watch, and what we're definitely going to want to watch is the price breaking through this fair value gap, moving upwards in this area. And assuming my thesis is correct and we do see a flash crash somewhere in this area moving down, I will be watching for it to take out this low. But I think that it's incredibly likely that we could see it stop somewhere around this fair value gap, whether it be the middle, whether it fills, whether it even comes out a little bit, maybe touches this -5 line right here on my fib charts before seeing the breakout in the month of May. And that doesn't necessarily mean that May has to be spectacular. It just has to, at a minimum, create a base for it to bounce off of, so we might see it play around quite a bit. I do have a straight line right here on the charts, but it will likely be just like what we see here. We're going to see a lot of price action. It's not just going to move up in a straight line. We're going to see a lot of price action in between here in the month of May. It doesn't necessarily have to break out big time, but I would expect to see at some point in the month of May price trading above the equilibrium zone moving into June, because we're going to have to see that in order for the price appreciation to move upwards towards this upper trend line right here, which would be the 7th wave. So I will be getting into this some more. I just wanted to go over a couple of these things. I do adjust my charts to incorporate the new information as the price action moves forward. So you've seen these lines, because I don't know the exact points these things are going to happen, but I do believe this was the bottom of the number 4, moving into the false breakout, number 5 leg right here that we are currently in. I think we could go up to here, but we don't have to, but it's going to be somewhere in this range before seeing that flash crash. If the flash crash does not occur by the 7th of May, it's likely off the table, and we will likely start to see an upward trajectory. At the very least, I would expect this crash to come down to this fair value gap right here, and I do lean towards following a path similar to this yellow line, where it would take out this previous low right here, bouncing off of the fair value gap here previous to the breakout. So keep your eyes on this, because nobody knows exactly how this is going to go. And even though my thesis may be very logical and make a lot of sense, it doesn't necessarily have to happen that way. But no matter what happens, don't forget what the XRP breakout chart is telling us, because that's the most important part. The breakout will begin in the month of May, moving into June, July, possibly August. It will likely be about 2 to 4 months, and I think it's going to be a substantial move, one that you won't be disappointed in. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of your support. Please do me a favor and hit the like button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps the channel, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.
Get this lion. He's the king of the jungle. Huge mane out there. He's laying down under a tree in the middle of Africa. He's so big. He's so hot. He doesn't want to move. Now, the little lion cubs, they start messing with him. Biting his tail, biting his ears. He doesn't do anything. The lioness, she starts messing with him, coming over, making trouble. Still, nothing. Now, the other animals, they notice this, and they start to move in. The jackals, hyenas, they're barking at him, laughing at him. They nip his toes and eat the food that's in his domain. They do this, and they get closer and closer and bolder, till one day, that lion gets up and tears the shit out of everybody, runs like the wind, eats everything in his path. Because every once in a while, the lion has to show the jackals who he is. It's too late to be scared. It's time to kill.